Well, that was an interesting brief. The Golden State Warriors were coming off, obviously, half a decade of domination. They were a bit of a dynasty. They really wanted a film that sort of celebrated the fans and the unity that had come for that team and the love for that team. And I had been reading some poetry by Alice Walker, and I opened the book up to a page called Loving Oakland. And within it was a stanza that said, I'm particularly fond of these Warriors, the basketball team from Oakland, and talking about the fans. It's actually what led the treatment. I started that treatment with the poem, with the excerpt from that poem. And we wanted to create a visual language that allowed for a lot of change of direction. So a lot of shots were moving, and he's gonna run left here. The idea is that anytime you go into a tunnel, or you disappear, well, those are portals. You can be anywhere. That could take you from San Francisco to Oakland, and then you can be in Oakland, you can be all the way up in Bodega Bay, and then you can be in Palo Alto. As long as we were using things, that sort of stuff kind of came to light. We were very mindful of the places we went there. We were making sure that we weren't just holding up postcards of San Francisco or the Bay that were images that felt familiar to the world, but that images that people from that area would identify and know and actually have respect and love for, that sort of depicted the real Bay Area, the real Golden State. So that ending, where he's by himself and he's doing all this stuff and you sort of don't know where he's going, and then it match cuts to the crowd being there, which we actually got on the floor to shoot a preseason game against the Lakers. It sort of showed like this guy, none of this means anything without the fans. I'm proud of that piece because that type of film is not something that I'd normally have been given the opportunity to direct, a visual story like that. And I love sports, I love basketball more than anything. And to be able to give the city that piece of film, that was special.
Give me 1 second, thank
Sure.
you, sorry. 2 minutes, thank you.
The motivation was to talk about this job that our moms do, or that mothers do, that isn't always really considered a job. And that was an interesting premise the agency Mullen Lowe kind of came with, and they brought that to life in terms of sort of let's see how people would feel about that if it was posed to them in the form of a job interview and a job description. We didn't cast anybody like through a casting agency or anything. We posted job descriptions in different places, Craigslist, and other job boards, and it was very simple, like, exciting opportunity, head of operations. We called it a head of operations job, which is what a mom is. We found different language to kind of get that out there, and yeah, it just kind of happened the way you would probably, if you and I decided to have a company today and hire someone, we needed someone to do our operations and to like manage our meetings and do everything. We would just post something to a job board, and those are the people we found. I think when they were sort of comfortable with that video thing and there wasn't a person in front of them, and maybe they didn't feel cameras in the room and they didn't feel this production happening, I think they were open to being vulnerable because like this guy couldn't really do anything. He couldn't read them necessarily, their body language as well. Sometimes you run this danger of like, whether you want to call it being punked or whatever, but I don't think anyone felt that way. I think everyone felt like we helped them have a realization and remember someone that they really care about and hopefully get them more connected to them. I think what we wanted to do was make something that felt honest. And I'm not going to say that there isn't another approach out there that would have been just as successful. Who knows? Flares and camera moves and Steadicam and drone work even, and anamorphic, all that stuff, kind of, there's a time and place for all of it. And I'm really proud of that work, not only for what it did, but that our egos didn't get in the way of the approach, and it didn't get in the way of the intention of what that work needed to do in the world. At the time, I was with a different production company here in the US, and they had an office in Belgium and was given a very coveted brief for the launch of the Ikea catalog. There's just, if you look at the stats of that catalog, I know we all get it, but they make 250 million copies of that. So I thought it was such a clever script. It was such a clever notion that they showcased all the stuff and all the product in this that was going to be featured that year in that catalog. by going through the people that were that were just basically pieces of furniture themselves. And so the idea that you would be cast to be in the IKEA catalog, and that if someone told you, well, there's 250 million people or copies are going to be distributed, and you didn't really know exactly what you were doing, a sense of grandeur and a sense of hubris would maybe wash over you. Everybody had a different level of that sort of delusional sort of optimism. We shot them from when they arrived to when they went to wardrobe, hair, and makeup. We had interviews along the way. They all kind of fell. It was more about character development than it was a script. We had to get them to a point where they thought they were going to be famous. That was the most important thing they had to say. And I mean, in a lot of ways, look, everybody that was in that has had some success, and certainly there were some of the actors had been in some films, but everybody was still kind of waiting for their moment. So I think they could draw from their own personal experience of what would it be like to think you're about to be famous. But it was a big lesson in learning how just to work hard in the casting process. The harder you work in the casting process to identify the people who are going to portray what you want on screen, really the less you have to do, as long as you're willing to trust what they're going to do. I had done some work earlier that year, and I'd done some work in this kind of comedic Spinal Tap Office, sort of in that genre a little bit. And I started talking to my DP, who came from London, Daniel Trapp, and I said, I don't understand why this can't look good. And he goes, me neither. Really, the production design and the stage and showing the sort of the guts of that and being in the bellows, and it looked like the way we packaged it, even in the beginning, it just says the behind the scenes of the making of the video, and you just think you're watching a behind the scenes right away, and then you realize we're doing a parody. If it wasn't working, we could have pivoted, but I think we all liked what was happening, and I don't think we sacrificed any of the genuine nature of it when we pursued that approach.